Scarlet Street is a 1945 film noir directed by Fritz Lang.
It's the story of a guy called Chris Cross, who is a sort of unassuming cashier. He's played by Edward G. Robinson. At the start of the film, there's a little get-together with his boss and some of his workmates, celebrating his 25 years of being in the same dull, tedious job. The boss leaves the party at one point and they all look out the window and he gets into a car with a much younger blonde lady and he sort of laments, I wonder what it would be like to be loved by a lady like that. So yeah, we get the impression that he's a bit lonely. Although it does turn out he is actually married. He's married to his landlady and it's a bit of a loveless marriage and she's a bit horrible to him and she's a bit of a nag. On his way home from this party, he encounters what he thinks is like a mugging. So he fends off the attacker and rescues this girl by the name of Kitty, played by Joan Bennett, and she happens to live above a bar, so they go for a quick drink. And on the side, Chris is a bit of an artist. He doesn't sell any paintings, he doesn't show anyone. It's just a hobby. She seems to think that he's got lots of money. And it turns out this attacker was actually her. Well, you think it's her boyfriend. I think it's not. Obviously, from when the period this film was made, there was lots of taboo subjects that you couldn't talk about in a film. But I think it's never explicitly stated, but she's quite possibly a prostitute and this guy who was her pimp. Generally he's like her boyfriend as well. That's who was like hitting her in the street. They decide that they're going to try and con Chris out of some money because Kitty assumes that he's rich. Bad people trying to do bad stuff to other people. The innocent guy has his morals tested, shall we say.
Yeah, unlike most film noirs, this one is particularly bad for bad people. I mean, they are pretty horrible.
They are, yeah.
In this film, it's particularly downbeat and oppressive. I think so. This is actually based on a book. This film called is a French book called La Chienne, which is, I think, simply means the bitch. That was actually made as a film in the 30s, I think, by Jean Renoir. So it was done as a French film, and he actually hated this version of it. Although a lot of people call this version, in terms of Fritz Lang's career, a masterpiece, or a masterpiece of his American period, of his Hollywood period. I've never seen the original French one, and I've never read the book either. I think his version of it was a little bit less downbeat, and I think it was a bit more ironic, and it had a bit more of that kind of maybe the French humour in there, maybe. I don't know, I couldn't say, I haven't seen it. I noticed that it popped up on Amazon Prime the other day, so that's why I suggested we do it. And I've seen it about 5 or 6 times before, and I really like it. I think it's like one of my kind of top 5 film noirs. And I think every time I watch it, it seems to get more depressing.
It certainly, yeah. I mean, it get towards the end. I was like, "Blimey, this is getting quite dark, isn't it?"
Yeah.
I guess because of when it was made, I wasn't quite expecting it to go to some of the places it went. Even though I knew I was watching a film about people doing horrible things to other people, and it was a film noir. I guess I didn't expect it to go quite as far as it did towards the end. I mean, I can't. I have to confess, I haven't seen many film noirs, particularly from that sort of the period when there was loads of them being made. I mean, obviously there's still films like that in the modern times. I guess a lot of the Coen films that you could argue are film noirs, and certainly other filmmakers out there doing similar kinds of things. But your traditional black and white film noirs from sort of the 40s and 50s, I haven't seen many of them, to be fair.
Yeah. So, I mean, what did you think of it as a newcomer too?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's it kept me gripped. Yeah, I wanted to know what was going to happen. I felt bad for old Chris and what he was going through, and obviously as the viewer, he's being lied to, and they're exploiting him and trying to extort money out of him, and yeah, and you just think, come on, you've got to wake up and see past her looks, that she's just taking you for a ride. The guy Johnny, played by Dan Duria, yeah, nasty piece of work. Comes across sort of quite friendly, but yeah, I mean, behind, when no one else is looking, he slaps Kitty quite a few times, but she doesn't seem to care. She just keeps coming back to him for some reason. You have pangs of sympathy for her because of the way that he treats her, but then she doesn't do anything to sort of get away from him particularly, and just seems to let him get away with it.
And they're basically masochistic, the two of them. And I think that was one of its... Because so, obviously, this film came out slap bang in the middle of the Hays Code. We've mentioned the Hays Code before when we've done other films from this period. And, that was the big code, the big kind of censorship code that said you couldn't do certain things on film. And this kind of has so much in there that you couldn't do or you shouldn't do, but they somehow managed to get away with it. I mean, obviously, the big difference here is you've got Fritz Lang, this big filmmaker that comes over from Germany, maker of films like Metropolis and M. I mean, he's quite a controversial figure anyway. Many different myths and legends surround that guy's career and life. And then he kind of puts his own signature on the film noir genre. But this one seems to be particularly dark, and it does go very dark. It starts off quite kind of light and quite playful, and also what I really like about it is that all the cast. I mean, it's literally just those three. Obviously, you get his wife in there as well, and a couple of people. There's like a friend at the beginning who comes to visit. But for the most part, it's just those three. And they're just such good actors. I mean, obviously, especially Edward G. Robinson, who is, I mean, what's great about him is that everyone knows him as kind of playing those dark, nasty people, Little Caesar and Key Largo and things like that. And yet here he's complete polar opposite of what he's famous for. But he does it so well. And he's believable as this kind of, very pathetic... I mean, almost to the point of you do feel sorry for them, but other times you think, oh, come on. You can't be that naive. So he's like, you say, he's this artist, and he paints they're quite odd paintings. They're quite absurd paintings, but they're very flat. And that's kind of there is a line in there where it's mentioned a couple of times in that he paints these odd paintings, but he has no perspective. And that's kind of the thing with him. He has no perspective on anything in front of him. He can't work out the dangers in front of him, and even his wife. He's unable to stand up to his wife. He's unable to stand up to. So when he finds out what they're doing to him, he's unable to stand up with them. And there is that scene actually when there's this twist and you find out what they're doing to him, and you're like, oh, and he doesn't even stand. He just lets them kind of get away with it because he's infatuated with her that you really kind of. You're like, he's kind of screaming at the screen. I just think it's really wonderfully put together, and just those three. So this is the second time those three were together with Fritz Lang. There's a film called The Woman in the Window, which came out before this one, which is very similar to this one.
I think they did play similar sort of characters, didn't they?
They're very similar characters. It's very similar themes, but it's not as dark as this one. And I've only seen that one once. I think Eureka, Masters of Cinema, put it out a few years ago, but I don't have it. I'd like to pick it up. But it's not quite as good as this one. And then Fritz Lang also used Joan Bennett in Secret Beyond the Door with Michael Redgrave, which is another great film. That too is quite dark and heavy going too. But I just think they're all performances together. There's some really great moments when the three of them are in in an apartment, kind of going at each other, and they're really great. And Joan Bennett, who Fritz Lang apparently wasn't so keen on as an actress, although I think he had a thing for her romantically or something. I think she's really good in this. Yeah, I've always liked her performance in this, and she's someone that I don't really. I think she's famously in Father of the Bride, the original Father of the Bride. She's quite famous for that. Her last film was Suspiria. She was the Madame Blanc in Suspiria, which was a great final role for her to be in. So yeah, I think what's really great about this film is the performances. For all its darkness, there are some quite humoured moments in there too, and especially the kind of the playful relationship between him and his wife, because she's just annoying. She's got a massive. She's basically, she's been married before, and her husband was a policeman. She's got a massive portrait of him on the wall of their apartment. And even with his actual medal pinned to the chest of this painting. So, yeah, he's obviously constantly got this overbearing, he's quite a large, it's a big picture, and he's also obviously quite a big guy. And, yeah, he's got this constant presence, of a deceased husband staring down at him all the time. So, even just being in his own home is quite an oppressive, not only has he got her, but he's also got, sort of the ghost of
of her ex-husband bearing down on him all the time, resulting in quite an oppressive thing. And that, I guess that's why he looks for an escape. Even, I guess you could argue maybe he does know that she obviously doesn't, she's not attracted to him, but because she shows a vague interest, he just latches onto that because he's just so desperate for something else. He's so miserable in his own existence, that he just wants to escape in any way that he can. Just have some
purpose,
something,
yeah.
some pleasure in life.
There's actually that scene. There's a great scene when you see that, when you're introduced to that painting of the former husband on the wall, and he has a friend round from the bank, and he's telling his friend about him, the former husband. He says basically how he drowned in the East River, and it's a very funny moment when his friend says too bad, and Edward G. Robinson turns around and he looks up at the painting and he's like, yeah, too bad. But there's a look on his face which just tells you everything he's thinking about. Clearly cynicism there about the man's demise and the position he's now in with the wife. And I think that's why I love his acting in this. There was quite a few different things written before the screenplay that they got. I've actually got this book. This is a big book, but this is Fritz Lang. It's called The Nature of the Beast. It's basically a biography about him, and some really interesting discussion in there about Scarlet Street. And how it was the original idea behind it, and how it's quite close to the original book. It was a really kind of a close study of the original book. But he had like these ideas of how Edward G. Robinson's character would be. Well, I mean, he obviously he's a failed artist, but there was more. I think there was more going on in the original script. And how, but things like him sitting in his bathroom and having to do his artwork in his bathroom came from the original script as well, which I thought was quite amusing. Him, sitting in this little bathroom trying to do his painting because his wife literally won't let him do it anywhere else. But yeah, like I said before, we did it on Amazon Prime, but I have it on DVD. I think there's been a couple of versions. So apparently this went. I think there was a glitch with copyright.
Well, it's in the public domain now.
It's in the public domain. There was some kind of glitch with copyright, and it's now in the public domain. Obviously, I don't know about this country. I know that's the public domain in America. Are there Blu-rays? Because I've not found...
Not over here, there isn't in the UK, no. I mean, there's several DVD releases. I mean, I think over the years, because it was public domain, there's been lots of releases, and some of them, not very good quality. But Kino Lorber picked it up back in 2012. Basically, the original film is in the Library of Congress in America, and they've got the original negative and scanned that. So, their edition is far better quality than anything that's been before. I mean, they didn't, probably because it's not going to shift a huge amount of units, they didn't clean it up or anything. There's still print damage. I mean, whether that's the version that's on Amazon, I mean, it had a decent picture, but I'm sure the Blu-ray looks better. If you don't have Amazon Prime, then obviously there are lots of DVDs around that you can pick up, but if you want the best quality, then I would go for that Blu-ray. And it is, I think it's obviously it's region A coming from America, but it is region B as well, apparently, from what I've read. Possibly because it is public domain, it doesn't need to have region coding on it. I mean, there's not a lot of features on it, but there is a commentary by film historian David Callatt.
I've got it twice. I've got this version, and then I've got another version. This doesn't have anything on it apart from there's a small booklet. It's hardly a booklet. It's just 2 pages. It's got some couple of pictures and just some information about each of the main cast in there. That's basically all it's got in there. But I was reading, because of the public domain thing, sometimes with public domain stuff is that they'll kind of take it and edit it and do. I think there've been some dodgy releases and some dodgy edits of it over the years. So maybe the Kino Lorber one would be worth. I might pick that up.
That's probably the best version out there. I mean, I think there was a Blu-ray in France as well. I'm not sure how that compares, whether that's the same master or not, I'm not sure.
I may well pick up the Kino Lorber version of the film, because it'd be nice to have it on Blu-ray. It's odd that no one has done it on Blu-ray in this country, I suppose. But then Eureka, Eureka maybe it's something Eureka might do one day, because they've done.
Well, they may well do, yeah.
That might crop up one day in the future, I suppose. And that was Scarlet Street. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit that subscribe button over there, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. There's some other videos to check out over here. Come and find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and join us next week for another video.